Robert L Thaggard is a retired banking executive and published short story author who's released his debut novel, The Thinker. And he's on with us just now from Dallas, Texas. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Toby. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. So in this book, The Thinker, Major Henry Colton is stationed in war-torn Berlin in the spring of 1946 to serve on the various committees working towards the rebuilding of the city. On the council, all four Allied forces are represented, and there's quite a bit of conflict between the Soviets and the other groups. So without giving too much away, just take it from there if you can.
Yeah, it's historical fiction, which is a genre that I've always appreciated myself. It's also LGBTQ romance novel. The bridge between the historical fiction and it being a gay romance it's a coming out story too. Henry has to come out, probably mostly to himself, first and foremost, and then to a friend of his best friend, etc. So that's really the bridge between the historical fiction and it being a gay romance.
Yeah. And how does he find it in 1946? Because these were very different times. This was just after World War II. So coming out must have been very difficult.
He's obviously not out at the office and to the people with whom he works on a daily basis.
Yeah.
But he does find love at the office, and they have to, because it is 1946, they have to go away and have weekends together, one or two nights together at the very most, until they finally get to spend the luxury of 7 nights together when they meet each other up in Sweden, which is where his love interest is from. But it was very difficult back then, and it's still not completely easy right now. So.
Yeah. And what was it that inspired you to make this a dual genre novel with the LGBT romance and the historical fiction?
The basis of where it all started was in a noir writing class that I took at Southern Methodist University here in Dallas. My favorite professor was doing noir fiction that particular spring. So I love Berlin. I've had a probably 5-decade love affair with that city. So seeing it the first time back in 1978 at the absolute height of the Cold War. I mean, it was hardcore East Germany and West Germany back then. But so chapters 2 and 4 in the book are the 2 short stories that resulted from that particular class. And my buddies at SMU had been on me for a long time. They go, dude, you're such a great writer. You need to do a novel. It's like, I'm not sure if I'm a novelist. And then last winter, right after Christmas, I started putting it together. And so that was the foundation upon which I built the entire novel. And I'm part of the LGBTQ community myself. So I wanted to make that part of the story as well.
And you actually write the book in the first person, don't you? Is that because maybe you can identify with the character being in the community, or is it another reason?
The main reason is because I'm lazy. I find it very easy to write in the first person, and it really helps me invest in the character to speak it from the first person. I took it almost to an extreme, to the point where I was Henry when I was writing some of the story, and I fell in love with his love interest. That was the only way I could bring it out, was to actually be that guy, put myself in his place, and live his life through my writing, if you will.
Yeah, and I don't know why, and maybe this is a common thing, but I find it easier to read a book that's done in the first person as well. If you find it easier to write, maybe it's the same reason.
Yeah, I'd say so. And I'm reading a dear friend of mine, Talia Tate Burner. Her 3rd book is out now. It's written in 3rd person limited. So that's about as close to first person as you can get, because you're seeing what her protagonist, Bernice, is going through from right there looking on top of it, except she's not speaking from Bernice's voice. 3rd person omniscient, I'd say, is an even more difficult genre to write, just because you have to understand everybody's point of view do. And, maybe that's the next book or the book after that. I'm just not there yet.
And where did you get your information for this book? Because I'm going to take a wild guess by looking at you and assume that you weren't around in Berlin in 1946.
I was not. And, the thing about when you write historical fiction, man, your research has to be spot on, because if somebody sees a mistake in it, then that blows up the whole thing. So, yeah, I did a bunch of research for it, also including all the places that the action takes place in the book. I've been to every one of them. I've been to Berlin. I lived in Germany. I'm from San Antonio, Texas. I've been in the Texas Hill Country. I did a study abroad in Buenos Aires. I did a study abroad in Oxford. So all these places that I talk about in the book, I've been there, feet on the ground, researched everything, and make sure that everything's historically accurate, because you have to be historically accurate or the story can blow up on you.
You go to these places in the present day, so how do you know that maybe certain things that are there now were there back in the day?
Research. It's just so absolutely critical for the credibility of the story to know and read. The good thing about, for example, a lot of the story takes place in Sweden too. I was in Sweden this summer because it was 108 degrees back here in Texas. So I found that as a great opportunity to get the hell out of here. And you go to these places, but the thing is, in Europe, places are old. You go there and you read the plaque, you read the web article on it. This place has been here for 6 centuries. In America, stuff's new. So that's the good thing about writing about things in Europe is they've been there for a long time, and it's really easy to find information about it.
Apart from all the McDonald's. But even then, who knows how long the buildings have been there?
Exactly. The McDonald's can be in a place that was a telegraph office 70 years ago.
And some parts of the book are written in German. Are you familiar with the language, or did you have to find that out?
No, I was a German minor the first time around at the University of Texas at Austin, and then I went back and subsequently got a Bachelor of Arts in the German language when I was in my 30s, back in the 1990s, and I lived in Munich, and I raced bikes over there too, bicycles, not motorbikes. So I lived with a German family. It was a situation where if you want to eat, you better speak German. So I had a full immersion plunge into the German language. But the thing is, I graduated from University of Texas in 1995. So that's 27 years ago. So I still do Duolingo very frequently just to keep my German fresh, because I can read it and I can write it. But if you want to speak it and hear it, you have to stay current in it.
Yeah. Is German a hard language to learn? I mean, it's probably easier than most because English is Germanic, isn't it? But it looks hard if you weren't to go any deeper than just looking at it.
The great thing about German is, yes, it's very difficult. The grammar is difficult. But the thing is, they don't break the rules. English is the hard language. The language that you and I speak together, it's a very irregular and really messed up language, kind of like French is. But German is like, once you learn the rules, there's no exceptions. It goes if you can say the word in German, you can spell the word in German. If you can spell a word in German, you can say the word in German. So it's hard insofar as you have to learn the rules. But once you learn the rules, it's a very regular language.
That's a good language to learn. I wish they were all like that.
Yeah. No, thank God I'm a native speaker of English, because our language is a very difficult language.
So why did you decide to write this book now?
I'd say pretty much just because I found myself at a place where I needed some additional creative expression, and I was not really wanting to write short stories and flash fictions. That's the ones I specialized in particular. I needed to take a deeper dive, and I needed to challenge myself. So I challenged myself. I accepted the challenge, and And I did it. I started it in December. I finished it in, plus or minus April. Then the funny thing is, I was talking about this with my friend Talia, who's the author I was referring to earlier. Writing the book is half of the process.
Yeah.
The other 50% is getting it edited, getting through the proofreader, getting it through your publisher, and actually getting the darn thing printed to where you can hold a copy in your hands.
Yeah.
Writing it's the first half.
And this is your debut novel, but you've got a master's in creative writing from the Southern Methodist University. How long ago was that? And if it was a while ago, why is it taking you till now to do a book?
Yeah, I got my, the funny thing is I'm still believe it or not, at age 61, I'm still at SMU. I'm getting my third master's right now in dispute resolution and conflict management. I got my first master's from there in 2011, got the creative writing one in 2015. And dude, I'm a nerd. I can't help it. People, the funny thing is my friends, particularly the friends I know from business, are always asking me, so do you like writing papers and all that stuff? And I say, yeah, it's my passion. I absolutely love it. And so why did it take this long? It's been a work in progress that I didn't know was a work in progress until I actually sat down and banged it out on the keyboard.
Yeah, I think maybe people are still asking you this, but in this country, the question people would be asking is, do you like paying tuition fees?
Well, as much as I like paying taxes, which nobody likes. But the thing is, the programs I've been involved with at Southern Methodist University, they're all heavily subsidized by the university too, to where you're paying a lot less than if somebody's going in for an MBA, the Master of Business Administration, they're paying 5 times what I'm paying for the same semester hours because our program is heavily subsidized. Theirs is not. Theirs is a high demand program. Ours is not a high demand program. So they want people like I to be in the program.
And how do you think your masters have helped you write this book?
Honestly, Chubby, I couldn't have done the book without it, really, because I've had so much formal training in the technical parts and the creative parts, too. The 2 people to whom I dedicate the book on page 4, Dr. Jeanette Harris, she's an amazing technician who taught me everything I ever needed to know and wanted to know about the grammar of our language. And then Dr. Gary Swaim he's dear departed Gary Swaim now, but he is a master of creativity. And I took probably like 8 or 9 of his classes when I was going through my various studies at SMU.
And for the book, what was the process? Did you know where you were going to finish before you started?
No, absolutely not. I don't outline. I just sit down and write. And the funny thing about my writing process is I've heard other people talk about having writer's block before. I'm like, what is that? I don't know what writer's block is. I'm so bad about it that I'm sitting there having to tell myself, okay, dude, you're starving to death. Stop writing. Go eat a sandwich.
Yeah.
So writer's block is not something I know anything about. But yeah, I'd let it flow. This book, I didn't know where it was going until I was in the Argentina section, which is probably about 2/3 of the way through the book, and the ending came to me. And it made perfect sense. But when I sat down to start writing the book, I had no idea where it was going. I just wrote.
So because you didn't do an initial plan, if you like, did you worry before you got to that Argentina section that it wouldn't work out?
No, because I knew it would come to me. I'm not sure exactly how I knew that, but I knew it would come to me. And it did. I went through various permutations of how I thought it was going to end. There were I thought about killing some of the characters, which you can do when you're in the driver's seat like that. And then I decided to myself, no, let's keep everybody alive and see if we can figure this thing out.
Bit of a spoiler there. Nobody dies.
Nobody dies, but you don't know if they get to live happily ever after. You got to read the book to find that one out.
It's true. Was it as smooth as it sounds? Were there still bumps in the road when you were writing the book?
Oh yeah, man. The biggest bump in the road was actually a really funny one. I'm talking about Henry and his best buddy Billy being studying at University of Texas in Austin in the late 1920s and early 1930s. And they're going out to bars and doing the kind of stuff that college guys do. And I was sitting on a park bench because I'm a thinker myself one day thinking about that particular section of the book. And I was like, oh no, that's prohibition. They couldn't have been at a bar. They couldn't have been at a beer garden. So I had to go back and tweak a lot of stuff just to adjust it to what was the current reality in the United States at that point in time. We were right in the depths of prohibition. People were drinking. You just had to be a lot more creative about it.
That's so true. I guess it must be so easy to forget about something like that, yet looking back it seems so obvious. Do you still worry that now the book is released, there might be something major that you've forgotten?
No, because I've read that stupid book so many times that I can almost recite it to you off the top of my head right now. I've had those thoughts. I've had those reflections. I've had that level of anguish about it. And, I challenged anybody to come up with something that I missed on this thing, because I've been through it and through it and through it.
And because it is historic fiction, part of it's obviously fiction. So was it only the characters that were made up and no elements of historicalness that were made up?
I didn't make up any of the historical part to it, really. I'd say the biggest thing, really, as far as my creative process went on that, is I borrowed a lot from my own life on it.
Yeah.
The Billy character, who's involved in primarily in chapters 5 and 6, he's Henry's first love interest. I had a dude like that when I was the same age that Billy was. I'm sorry, that Henry was. It wasn't in Fredericksburg, Texas. It was in another small hill country town, which I will not mention just for everybody's sake at this
for
point.
Legal reasons.
Yeah, right. But, it is a lot of, I do write the me story to an extent, but you kind of have to write the me story because that's, I think, what gives it makes it sound true, is you have to write from personal experience, share that experience, maybe bend it and twist it a little bit to make it your character's experiences. But there's no better source than writing here.
Do you think now that you've released your first novel, you'll be able to write another one, maybe a sequel to this or another standalone thing?
Yeah, this one does not lend itself to a sequel, which people will see once they read it. I definitely have a couple other novels in me. One that's set in London in the 1990s. One that's set in the English countryside in the early 20th century. I spent a lot of time in the UK, so
I can tell.
That's kind of my go-to place. But yeah, if I want to see how this novel goes and how the type of reaction and feedback I get from it. But yeah, there's definitely at least 2 more novels, neither of which have anything to do with The Thinker.
Well, that sounds exciting. And in the meantime, where can we find your debut novel, The Thinker? It's
on Amazon.com, both as an ebook, a paperback, and a hardcover. So that's 3 different media through which you can get it. Barnes & Noble as well. They both have a good synopsis on the page about my book, telling you kind of what it's about. And people they can go to the author's website too, and if they want a signed copy, I'll be happy to sell it to them at Amazon's price plus shipping.
And what is the link for that author's website?
My publisher is still coming up with it right now.
Right.
It's that new because I'm going through Kindle Direct, KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, but I'll be posting it very soon.
Great.
I'll make sure you know what it is too.
Yeah. Well, many thanks for joining us. It's been great to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Toby, and I appreciate your time a lot. This has been very enjoyable.